Welcome into the Big Little Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Patrick Previty. That is Andrew Greig. The finals are set. We got OKC versus Indiana, battle of the small market teams. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about Luka Doncic and what is next for the Golden State Warriors as well. But first, we're going to talk about a little bit of the fallout from Knicks versus Pacers. Andrew, I know you had a few points that you wanted to make and float out there, so I'll give you the stage.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give more credit to the Indiana Pacers because on this podcast they've been on the lower end of our totem pole just because the fact that we just hadn't been very high on them all season long. We both picked against them in each of the three series that they've played so far, so I wanted to give them their due credit because they have been a fun team to watch. I've just personally enjoyed the whole playoffs, and Indiana basketball has been an actual delight to watch. So I just wanted to throw out a couple of stats that I found really interesting that I was seeing like just when I was scrolling through Instagram and whatnot. So they scored 74 points. They had a plus 74 point differential in points in transition, just showing how good they are when they get out running. Tyrese Halliburton just being able to get good outlet passes and get like a lot of people involved was so like important during the series. The fact that they had such a deep bench kind of played into that as well. Andrew Nembhard's defense on Jalen Brunson was like damn near exceptional, and he's been playing good defense all playoffs long. I had a couple of stats about Damian Lillard in the first round. When Andrew Nembhard was the primary defender on Damian Lillard, he shot 23% from field goal percentage, and then 14% from three. Donovan Mitchell in the second round, when Andrew Nembhard was the primary defender, he shot 23% from field goal range, and then 16.7% from three. And then Jalen Brunson, these numbers are a little bit higher, but still below his averages. He shot 38% from the field goal percentage and 30% from three. So Andrew Nembhard was one of the better perimeter defenders against some of the best guards in the league, and I just wanted to give him his props. And the Pacers, I want to throw this out to you. The Pacers are 7-0 when Caitlin Clark is in attendance, so there's a Caitlin Clark effect too. So some fun stats I saw around, and I want to give the Pacers a little bit more credit than they've been getting on the podcast so far.
Has she really been to 7 games?
She has been, yeah. I feel like she got a lot more coverage that last one, but she's been to 7.
Yeah, because I know like her and Tyrese Halliburton are, pretty good friends at least, or they're at least icons for Indiana teams. So I didn't even know that it had been 7 games. I knew that it had been a few, but hopefully she could be there for game 1 of the NBA Finals. Yeah, we maybe have been a little bit low. I kind of disagree. I think we've kind of come around a little bit on the Indiana Pacers as the playoffs have went on. So I'm like less low on them than I was at the start of these playoffs, because obviously I picked the Bucks if they were healthy to beat the Pacers. But since that moment and since they took care of that Bucks team, I feel like they've been a really good squad going through the Cavs and through the Knicks. So I'm glad you at least gave them some love, though. I know there were some people talking about it.
Yeah, I also wanted to mention that they have the second best record in the NBA since January 1st, only 3 games behind the team that they're playing in the finals, OKC. So that's something to be said too. The fact that they have been doing this for an extended period of time too, especially after that rough start. I feel like they were 10-15 at one point. They just got off to a really slow start to the season. I just wanted to give them their props and shout them out a little bit more, because Indiana basketball, it's like one of the like smaller markets in like basketball, but one of the most passionate fan bases. And I know that we haven't like done them their complete due justice. I know
Tyrese Halliburton a superstar?
Yeah, I haven't. So that's another reason why I wanted to maybe get on the good side of some Pacers fans, because I know that maybe some of my takes aren't appeasing to them too much.
Yeah, I mean, I've been high on Tyrese Halliburton. I think that's been my main opinion on this Pacers team. But yeah, Pascal Siakam played lights out in the conference finals. So got to also give props to him. This team is very deep, and it's a battle of the two potentially deepest teams that were in the playoffs this year, the Indiana Pacers and Oklahoma City Thunder. Let's move to the Knicks, because obviously this is more about like the fallout of that conference final series, getting us geared up here for the rest of the NBA season and the off season. Was there anything that you saw there with the Knicks that would potentially like catch your eye as far as the way that they move forward?
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that like Tibbs is so like uninclined to use his bench until like the very end of that series was so interesting, because you could just tell their starters kind of ran out of gas. Mikal Bridges coming into a new team and also like assuming a completely different role. throughout the course of like a full season this year is just like an interesting because he went from more of a like not dominant scorer, but like the leading scorer on that Nets team and just assuming a different role towards the end of his son's timeline. And then he just took a complete step back, at least offensively this season, because he had to. There were just so many good players on that team. OG Anunoby kind of fitting into like a bigger role than he was in Toronto. Obviously, he assumed a bigger role, but like they just all were playing different roles than they were at, like besides like Cat and Karl Anthony and Jalen Brunson towards the end of that series, or just in general for the Knicks team. So I think it's just interesting the way they went about playing, and there weren't any critiques until they lose. But I mean, it kind of feels like that team just ran out of steam towards the end. The fact that they weren't using their bench is kind of feels like that was part of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there's a time to say that the way that Tibbs coaches may not be sustainable for long playoff runs. And I was happy that they did go into that bench. And we talked about that at the end of game 5, but it just seemed too little too late. And then obviously just the Indiana Pacers, you're going against them, as I just mentioned, one of the deepest teams in the playoffs in all of the NBA. So you're kind of just trying to switch things up, and then the other team just simply does it better. Karl Anthony Towns, I felt like he played pretty well in that series against the Pacers. I felt like he had an aggressive mindset against their bigs, and he was really good. Jalen Brunson, I don't buy into this whole thing that was getting floated around when they went down 3-1 and they were down 2-0 about him not being the best player on the championship team. I definitely think he could get really close to that, and I'm not ruling that out whatsoever right now. But I don't think that his size is, while it is a concern, I don't think that you can potentially not have a defender that helps him out throughout the playoffs. And I think going into your bench can potentially help him a lot. And I was disappointed that Tibbs didn't do that, at least earlier in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think we were both more mild-mannered about like Jalen Brunson's performances. I know a lot of people were getting really reckless with the stuff that they were saying, especially when they went down 2-0 or 3-1, just about his defensive abilities and like how big of a liability that is. But yeah, I think that Jalen Brunson is still one of the best players in the NBA, and he's been doing it for like consistently for an extended period of time now. So, and like when he gets going, he's the clutch player of the year for a reason. In that fourth quarter, when he starts heating up, he is like one of the best players in the NBA. So I don't want to take too much away from him. I just think that this Knicks team as a whole kind of ran out of gas towards the end of the season, and it happens like that. The way the Pacers play, they kind of force that out of you too, because they use so many guys and they play a full court press style more reminiscent of college. You don't see too many NBA teams doing it. They're younger teams, so they can do it more often. And does that gas you out? Yeah, it does. When you're having to play 94 feet every single possession, it makes you tired. And like that Knicks team is slightly, maybe not significantly, but it's definitely older than that Pacers team. And the fact that they're using their bench as well, it just it might have been time for the Knicks.
Yeah, let's move into the finals preview. Let's go to Oklahoma City and the Indiana Pacers, battle of the two small market teams. And what is something that you're looking to in this series that could potentially give either one of them the edge?
Yeah, so I mean, we can start from the OKC we can start from the OKC side of the ball. Like you just want to see. I think that in general, this OKC team is maybe just a little bit better version of Indiana, and don't even want to say that at this point because of the fact that every single time I picked against Indiana this playoffs, they've proven me wrong. But I mean, they play very similar styles of basketball. They're both young teams, and they just both like can get it done in clutch time. OKC like has proved that throughout the course of these playoffs. But I mean, from top to bottom, when you look at the star player and then you look at some of the surrounding players, but I mean, Pascal Siakam has had a pretty great playoff run so far. So I don't even know if you want to put their number twos together, but they're the number one, the best player on this whole series is definitely SGA. And then when you look at it, like you look at some of the surrounding players, you also think that OKC has the edge. So if you can just get SGA to like do what he's been doing consistently all season long, give MVP performances, the OKC Thunder look like a hard team to beat.
Yeah, OKC looks like a hard team to beat, but I will say I'm not ruling out the Pacers. Like I think if they could get one of these games on the road to start this series, that they have a real shot at winning. I definitely think we're going to know if the series is tied at 1-1 going back to Indiana that the Pacers mean business. I definitely think that is a strong possibility. I think it's interesting that we have a series like this because I feel like we haven't had a final series like this in a while where the two best players on each team play the same position. They're both point guards. They're going to be matched up against each other. Whether or not there's going to be a ton of switching or if those guys are going to be matched up defensively on each other remains to be seen. But that is something that I definitely think is really interesting. There's going to be so much comparison with those two guys. Now, I understand Shea, he's an MVP, multi-time All-Star, and Tyrese Halliburton was not an All-Star this year. I get like some of the pushback on that a little bit, but they're inevitably going to be matched up against each other, and people are going to be comparing how they play. I think that that's super important. Can't have a game from Tyrese Halliburton like you did in the conference finals, and we've seen it periodically throughout these playoffs, do for at least one in each series where he just doesn't impact the box score. He's not as aggressive. He obviously impacts the game, but going to need to see him just try to stay aggressive and shoot the ball more than like 7 times in one of the games. So I think that that's one of the matchups I'm looking at. As far as the depth is concerned, Jalen Williams for the Thunder, he's got to be consistent. He's got to be what he was in the previous series, not what he was against the Nuggets.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. It's the NBA Finals, and the Pacers show that if you give them literally an inch, they'll run with it completely. So if Jalen Williams isn't playing up to snuff and he's not having a good game, this isn't a Nuggets team where they legitimately only had like 3 players by the end of that series that could consistently score for them on offense. The Pacers team is deep, and they can take advantage of any little tidbit that you give them. So not Andrew Nemhard, Jalen Williams needs to be on his game, and if he isn't having good games and SGA is like being forced to carry the load offensively, obviously they have other guys, and we just talked about it. This is one of the deeper teams, but you need your star players to play like star players, and you have 2 All-Stars on this team for a reason. If Jalen Williams isn't having good games, it makes it a lot harder for this OKC team to win.
If Jalen Williams isn't having good games, I do think Chet Holmgren can step up. We've seen that through these playoffs, especially in that Nuggets series. I felt like he was able to provide some scoring for them whenever Jalen Williams just went MIA. But in this series specifically, because the Nuggets they just didn't have enough bodies, I'm looking towards Pascal Siakam of the Indiana Pacers potentially being the third best player in this series as a whole. And I think that definitely changes the way that I look at it. Because if both teams are deep and Jalen Williams doesn't play well, because I think he's probably better than Pascal Siakam, at least at his best, then the Pacers have the second and third best players in this series. And while the Thunder may have Shea, we did find they were trying to look for that scoring, scrape it by. So respect to Chet Holmgren, but if one of those two guys isn't playing up to their ability and what we've seen them play at, then I really feel like that opens the door for this Pacers team. They're so deep. That bench is there. I mean, the Thunder play like their 9th guy in their rotation, so much respect to that. But the Pacers are right there. I just, if one of those guys doesn't show up, specifically Jalen Williams, I do think that this could be a very competitive series.
Yeah, and like I was saying, obviously we don't know how the matchups are going to go, but Andrew Nemhard can force those bad games out of you. Like before, like I was mentioning with the Pacers kind of recap that we did, like he's like consistently been one of the better perimeter defenders on some of these guards. And then you have also Aaron Nesmith and Benedict Mathurin even coming off the bench. Like they have good perimeter defenders. So not only do they have to not only have to play well, but they have to make sure that like the defenders aren't forcing them into bad games, because they have good defenders on both sides of these ball. Like that being said, Jalen Williams in his own right is a really good defender, and OKC is one of the best defensive players. OKC is one of the best defensive teams in the league, if not like top 3, maybe the best defensive team in the league. So it'll go for both teams, and I think there can be massive swings in the series. It wouldn't surprise me if either of these teams can like find a way to blow out the other team if one of them are having a good game, because both these teams can shoot, both these teams can play at a fast pace, both these teams can score. So if either team is like having a bad game, like there can't be any off nights from any of your star players, and then you just hope you get what you can consistently get from your bench.
Yeah, I'm glad that you at least brought up the Thunder's ability on defense too here, because Alex Caruso, I feel like, would definitely be thrown at Tyrese Halliburton. I don't have their matchups out, between them off the top of my head, but that could potentially present some problems. That's definitely something that the Thunder are going to want to see, if Alex Caruso can stick on Tyrese Halliburton, slow him down a little bit. I think I want to circle back here one last time. I didn't know if you had any extra points, but I wanted to mention again this matchup between Tyrese Halliburton and Shea, because I think if Shea is not on point for the Thunder, if he is not consistently providing offense, like maybe if there's some sort of first half in the game 1 against the Timberwolves kind of motion going on, I think the Pacers win that game. I think they win the series if Shea is not where he needs to be in this series. And then on the other side, if Tyrese Halliburton, he is the engine for this Pacers team. As great as Pascal Siakam was, if he has trouble with Alex Caruso and can't figure that out until game 3 or something like that, this Thunder team will jump on this Pacers team. So, I think both teams need to come in on point. It has blowout potential in specific games because I don't think either of these teams are going to let one of those moments slide, and you got to play a full 4 quarters to win in any of these games. But I think it's a really interesting matchup. They're the true engines behind both of these teams, as deep as they are.
Yeah, and I think the point you made with Tyrese Halliburton is so great because the fact that his floor just feels a little bit higher than some other players that can only affect the ball by scoring, because of the fact that even when he's not having a good offensive game, it feels like he still manages a way to get 7, 8, 9, 10 assists. He averages 10 assists for the season. So, I mean, when you're looking at his floor, even when he's not providing that scoring punch, you want him to take more than 7 shots like he did in game 4, whatever game that the Knicks took, game 5 maybe. You want him to be more aggressive on offense. You want him taking shots. But even when he's not, he is the floor general, and he's one of the more true point guards in this league. So even if they're not getting whatever they need to be getting, if they're not getting 20 plus a game from Tyrese Halliburton, he's still affecting the game. You know that he's still going to have a good amount of assists, and he's not going to be crazy turnover prone. So I mean, if SGA isn't having a good game, if Andrew Nemhard is forcing a bad game out of him, whatever, he's just not playing up to snuff. I feel like like we were saying, the Pacers can just jump all over them. So I want to say the series will be a lot closer than a lot of people are making it out to be, because I feel like
I don't think that this is going to be a blowout right now. I don't know if the Thunder win this in 5. I think that this is. I lean towards Thunder in 6, but I don't think that this is going to be a blowout.
Yeah, the overarching theme from, I feel like, a lot of people in the media right now is that the OKC Thunder are already crowned champions, and I want to push back against that a little bit, just because of the fact that we've seen the Pacers do this time and time again at this point, and it could be a thing where they just ran into a better team like they did last year. But I mean, this Pacers team has that experience from last year, and they're just finding ways to win games, and they almost feel like a team of destiny at this point. So I want to give the Pacers as much credit as I can.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think if I had any extra point I wanted to make here. Let's pick it. Let's pick it. I got Thunder in 6. But a close 6. I think it's 2-2 at one point.
Let's go Pacers in 7.
Whoa. Wow. All right. Hey, sticking with your guns. I like that. Pacers in 7. All right. Well, let's move to the Golden State Warriors and their offseason preview. How many years does Steph Curry? Yeah.
We can cut this, bro. I don't believe that. I just.
Okay, we're gonna keep it in the full one, but yes, that's not your actual pick. I'll cut it off the clip video. What would be your actual pick?
Probably Thunder in 6.
Thunder in 6. All right, cool. We're in agreement, but we're gonna go to this Golden State Warriors thing because I don't like clipping it anymore.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so moving into the Golden State Warriors offseason preview, how long does Steph Curry have? Is he a player that's going to play out the rest of this deal? Does he retire if they win a chip? He's signed through 26, 27. He's due to make $62 million that season. Obviously, Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green's contracts both go through that same time. When you're looking at Golden State and their future, what catches your eye the most? And what do you think about Steph Curry potentially retiring before that contract is up?
Yeah, I think that he plays through the contract, probably unfortunately for him, just because of the fact that the way this Golden State Warriors team is built. But I mean, if they can find a way to get through a loaded Western Conference into the finals and maybe even win another championship, I think he goes out on that high, because of the fact that he's just getting he's getting old, and then he's always had injury problems. He kept him out of essentially the whole series, the last series of the playoffs for the Golden State Warriors. And I think that it just feels like it's almost time. When they were talking about getting Jimmy Butler, and just that when that whole season was taking a downturn for the Golden State Warriors, about halfway through the season, a little bit over halfway through the season, it felt like Stephen Curry was talking like this was possibly the last run he was going to make, or very close to it. So would it surprise me if he retired after this next season coming up? Not at all. It would have surprised me if he retired after this, in this offseason completely. But he's definitely getting close to the end of his career, which is super unfortunate, because we may have just seen the greatest shooter we've possible. It's genuinely insane what he was able to do. He broke Ray Allen's 3-point record like a couple years back now, and just in general, like we even well before that, he was kind of widely acknowledged as the greatest shooter of NBA history, and if not one of the best, if not the best, one of the best point guards, definitely top 2 of all time. So it's just sad to see him go, and I think that's what I'm gonna miss most about the Golden State Warriors, and like looking forward, I think that's what everyone's gonna miss most.
Yeah, I would be surprised if there was any sort of decision obviously made in this offseason. But when I look at the fact that Curry, Butler, and Green's contracts align to be done and completed after 2 years from now, I do see there being an avenue where maybe Steph Curry and Draymond Green both retire together. I don't know exactly what Jimmy Butler would want to do, if he'd want to go to another team and ride it out. I mean, all 3 guys retiring at once sounds ridiculous, because you would have thought maybe that would have happened with the Spurs, right, with Ginobili, Parker, and Duncan, and that didn't happen. So maybe they do go their separate ways after. But Curry and Draymond Green, I think they were going to pretty much retire Golden State Warriors. I think you look at that and you realize, okay, we have a 2-year window. Kuminga and Moses Moody, like it is what it is with those players. Like, you're going to try to keep them on through the next couple of years and make it do with what you got with the younger core that you have with pods and everything like that. And you're just going to try to build around those 3 guys and give it a shot. And then in 2 years from now, you're probably going to expect that those guys are going to be gone, and you're going to enter a full rebuild mode. It's kind of interesting because the 2 timeline thing just seems like, in hindsight, so impossible. But if they had hit on those lottery picks, like they would have had a real shot at making it work. And they still got a championship out of it during that 2 timeline ish kind of run, or era rather. I definitely think that Steph Curry, it's not even a conversation though. Greatest shooter of all time, and he's going to enter a very interesting conversation as one of the best, or if not the best, point guard, of all time.
So much conversation talk we're having recently, but yes, I agree.
Legacy talk, man. It's legacy talk. Things are coming to an end, man.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying though, and I completely agree. I think that like Draymond and Curry going out of the same year probably makes the most sense, just because of the fact that Draymond has kind of been like Steph's like little bodyguard and essentially just like his main man since I mean, it felt like Clay was his right hand man for an extended period of time with them being the Splash Brothers, but I mean after Clay left, it feels like Draymond just always had his back, and it doesn't feel like either of those, like definitely not Curry, but like Draymond, he's a little bit on the younger side, or at least younger than Curry, but I don't think that he goes anywhere else, and I don't think he'd want to go anywhere else after Stephen Curry retires. So I think I could definitely see them going out like together, even if it's not like on the highest of notes with a championship, just leaving together and kind of maybe like being eligible for their jersey being retired on the same year or whatever, like being able to do all those things together. Like kind of, I don't know if like maybe one of them would want the spotlight over the other one, but I don't think so. It doesn't feel like the type of guys that they are, at least how they've played together their whole career. So I think it's just interesting to think about, because it is like coming to an end very, very soon. Like neither of these guys are going to play more than like, what would you say, 3 more years. So
No,
yeah, it just
the way
doesn't
that
feel
I look at
possible.
this, I mean, that would put Curry at, like, if he were to sign another extension or sign a 1-year deal, that puts him at 40 in the NBA. And I just don't know if that's Curry. Maybe
Yeah,
it is, but I just don't see it. And then I completely agree. When Curry's gone, when he says I'm done, I think that's when Draymond Green's out. I think the interesting part is Jimmy Butler, but at that point he's unrestricted free agent, and he probably might just be ring chasing at some point. So I think he's gone as well.
Yeah, no, I personally like. I mean, I would love to see it happen, but I just can't see Steph Curry like playing in the NBA when he's 40. Unfortunately, he's just throughout the course of his career. I mean, like throughout the course of anybody's career, we haven't really seen people play to their 40, like minus LeBron, and even then, like we're seeing LeBron start to slow down. And just the fact that he has been more injury prone over the course of his career than LeBron, and he's been like nicked up through like that was the ding on him, like for the like first part of his career, was that he couldn't really stay healthy, and towards the end of it, like we're starting to see just like some nooks and missing a couple games here and there, and now like even in the playoffs. So like it's unfortunate, but like the fact that he's like now, it felt like he'd get injured during the regular season, but when it was time for the playoffs, like I don't know how many games he'd missed, but if it was more than a couple, I'd be like absolutely shocked, because it feels like he's like one of the postseason warriors, but no pun intended. But now, like towards the end of the season, it feels like the end of the season was like how it was supposed to go down, where it's just like he's getting a little bit older, and this team, that whole team, just didn't feel like a real championship contender, even with Jimmy Butler on it.
Let's move into Luka Doncic. He's clearly gained some weight. I think that that's undisputable. This idea for this video comes from seeing all of those old clips of him and Jalen Brunson, and it's less so about those two guys being split up and more so just about how different Luka Doncic looks and the trajectory that the Mavericks are taking right now. Nico Harrison got bailed out, got that first overall pick, can build an actual contending team with the Dallas Mavericks, and Luka Doncic now on the Lakers, an aging LeBron, and a roster that certainly needs some help. Is he conditioned enough? Is there a conversation to be had? We're having a lot of conversations, as you mentioned, that maybe the Mavericks aren't too bad off now.
You don't think Austin Reeves can be the number 2 on a championship winning team?
No.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
worried.
Well,
I think he'd be a 3.
okay. Well, yeah, I don't know if the word "well off" is the term you'd want to use because of the fact that they made the finals last year. But I mean, we'll see what this team does. I think it's definitely an interesting conversation, if you want to call it that, for like seasons to come, especially given the fact that Cooper Flag is projected to be one of the more generational talents we've ever seen, and he has a lot of hype coming into the NBA. There was felt like towards the end of the season, a lot of teams were tanking for Flag, and they would have loved to have him on their team. Obviously, we know how the draft lottery goes, and now Nico Harrison can see what he can do with that team. But I mean, that team definitely doesn't look too bad, especially if you can get like 1 or 2 free agents to come in the offseason, or like you have Kyrie Irving re-sign, like that team with Kyrie Irving, Cooper Flag, Anthony Davis, and then the surrounding pieces around them. Like that team is still obviously Luka Doncic was the engine and drove that team to the NBA Finals, but like that surrounding cast like picked him up even when he wasn't like it wasn't all Luka Doncic. Like maybe you can attribute 70% of the finals run to him, but I think that the big men and everybody that was involved in that finals run, the majority of them are still on that team. So I think it's an interesting thought that now they have not Luka Doncic, but they have a significantly better defender, like for people that are probably significantly more fit and probably a young and hungry Cooper Flag.
The Mavericks, yeah. This whole conversation revolves around the Mavericks getting bailed out here with the lottery and the fact that they could potentially build a team here. Now they got to figure out what they want to do with Kyrie Irving. They have to make sure that he's still on the roster for most of this to work, but they have Anthony Davis for the foreseeable future. And it's a huge if those guys can stay healthy. With Cooper Flag, that's a pretty good setup right there. And it certainly saves basketball in Dallas. And then when you're the Lakers, you're going to be building around Luka Doncic, he's got to get better conditioned. Like that wasn't a reason to trade him. There was a lot of people saying like, I don't care about his conditioning no matter what. You don't trade him. But now it's getting to the point after having everything has been played out. The dust has settled. We know where the Mavericks are going and we know where the Lakers are going. Luka Doncic has got to make sure that he's well conditioned enough because we've seen players fall apart as the playoffs have gone on, get injured, get older and get injured. And there shouldn't be any room for something as controllable as his weight. And I just think it's interesting because if this whole LeBron Luka thing doesn't end up providing a championship and the Dallas Mavericks have Cooper Flag and he turns out to be that guy for all of those years, people might end up looking at it a little bit different. And I think that's a really interesting conversation. Although I don't think that the Dallas Mavericks want any part of a series against the Lakers. I think that is just not something that they want PR-wise and everything. I think they're kind of ready to put that behind them. But I think it's interesting, man. It's got to be something that he figures out, hopefully, coming up to this next season. It's a little bit of a wake-up call, I think, for Luka.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree, and you want to think that with LeBron on the team, that the conditioning just like naturally would get a little bit better. But you look at like some of the pictures that are circulating online, and just in general, like Luka's never been like the most conditioned player in the NBA, and he's missed like time in like his NBA seasons. He's only played 70 or more games twice in his career over the course of what is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seasons at this point,
Wow.
8 or 9. So like I obviously 70 is a pretty high number, but like the other numbers are 61, 66, 65, 66, and last year he only played 50 regular season games. So it's like he's missing like 20 plus games like pretty regularly in these regular seasons. And it's like if weight is also those are injuries that are not like completely like associated with like a weight issue or anything like that. Like if that starts coming into the picture as well, I mean like you can only like putting on extra weight is good up until a point, and then I think we've passed that point by miles at this point. And obviously, like there was the fact that they used the front office in Dallas used that as the excuse to trade him was like egregious at the time, because it just felt like you never trade like a franchise player like that, and everybody was going to riot. But like, like not even in hindsight, like it's still bad. It's still a bad move, but like it part of it like makes like the tiniest bit of sense, just because of the fact that like you don't want a guy who is like seems a little bit less motivated than some other players in the league, and like is consistently coming in to training camp or whatever it is in the offseason just looking a little bit bigger than he should. And then you never trade away your franchise player, but it's definitely something like to think about, especially given the fact that like Dallas looks a little bit better now that they have Cooper Flag, and the Lakers are like at a point where they overachieved this season, but how long is like LeBron going to play at that level where they can consistently play that well? And then how good is the supporting cast around them? Not very good. Obviously, changes can be made in the offseason, but the centerpiece around this Lakers tenure for the next decade or so is going to be Luka Doncic, or at least they hope it's going to be Luka Doncic. And for that to be at least possible, and for them to make great runs, he needs to be like well conditioned.
Yeah. Anything that you want to get off your mind here before we get out of here?
Nice. Tired, man.
Me too.
Yeah, life's life, and so just like trying to get through the days. Yeah. So I'm good on my
yeah, in the sports world, I guess there's not really too much going on. It kind of sucks without basketball, but I'm looking forward to the NBA draft. I'm looking forward to the summer league in basketball. I think it's a fun time. It's like basketball light. Like you have it like in the background a lot, and you don't really have to pay too close attention, but I like it. Bring back Orlando Summer League. I think that's like the most pure summer league. Wish it was back.
Yeah. Oh, I had a thought. I maybe should have mentioned this in the Pacers things, but my dad has been like high on Pascal Siakam for the longest period of time, and he's just like been like this ride or die Pascal Siakam. Every time I have the games on, he's like my guy Pascal. So I wanted to maybe give him a little bit of credit, because I mean he won the Eastern Conference Larry Bird Conference Finals MVP, or whatever the name of that trophy is. So yeah, I mean he's been high on him from the start, and he had a really good series. So shout out to my dad for recognizing it first.
And for the chance to be the second best player on 2 championship teams for 2 different organizations. We'll have a conversation about it eventually. We'll have a conversation. We will. We'll talk about it. Maybe I'll make a short on it or something, because I think it's interesting. How many players in NBA history? Probably not a lot.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not a lot. All right. Well, that's been the Big Little Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Previty. That's Andrew Greig, and we'll see you guys next time.